In this week's video I want to share some pictures and footage I got during a little road trip I did with my mom. It was her first time in Japan, so I brought her to a few of my favorite places, at least the one I know, because there's still so much of Japan that I have not yet visited. I really love the video clips and photos I got, but to add a little bit more to this video I want to share about the experience I had shooting exclusively with the Fujifilm X-E4 with a prime lens, the 35mm f2. And by the way, the fact that I shot with a Fujifilm camera or that specific 35 f2 is not really relevant. My point is more about the experience of going on a trip with only one prime lens. Beforehand, and to give you the full picture, making YouTube videos is now my main activity, so I also brought my Sony a7 IV with my GoPro to cover the video side of things, but I left the house with the intention to shoot pictures only with the Fuji and that one prime lens. Well, I still had to figure out how I wanted to shoot my videos, what focal length, do I want it more clean with my Sony or more immersive with my GoPro. The photography side was all sorted out from the get-go. I only had this 50mm equivalent and I had to play with it and find ways to be creative with it. I think most of us love the challenge of finding interesting compositions, waiting the good light for your dream shot, and all sorts of waiting or reflection that is directly linked with the photography taking process. But what we don't like is spending hours and hours to find a new best piece of gear to buy, or just take too much time every time you go out to choose your lens that you want to bring with you. And actually, even if you go for the easy solution of bringing everything with you, you would still have to constantly battle with thoughts in your head like, oh, this scene might look better on my 85mm, do I swap lenses, is it really worth it, but it's kind of windy and sketchy here, so I don't want to open my whole bag. It will slow you down and may actually make you miss the good moments, miss the good light, or miss the way you could be creative with the focal length you already had on your camera. I think it had become quite trendy in recent years, so you may be familiar with the problem of paradox of choice. It is this idea that having more options seems desirable, but in the end actually lead to greater dissatisfaction and anxiety due to the increased opportunity cost and difficulty of making a decision. Or in worst cases, it can also lead to just not taking any decision at all. I guess we have all experienced browsing for way too long on Netflix or YouTube, and in the end just giving up on the idea of immersing ourselves in a nice movie or interesting video. And it's the same with photography and camera gear. This concept was not new to me at the time of leaving for that trip. I was well aware of it, yet still always making the same mistake of bringing too much with me, which is painful to carry, and building up some stress because you keep thinking about what lens could make the best of the scenes you witness. It is not world's first problem, I know, but I really think that it takes a certain amount of courage to leave a lot of your gear behind before going on a trip or just on a photography day. It is very likely that what gave me the courage to try this out is the fact that I brought my mom to some places I've already been to, so I was less concerned about the fact of being able to take good photos or not. Additionally, they are all quite close to where I live now, so somewhere unconsciously I must be thinking that I can always go back to these places, so it's okay to miss a few shots. But day after day I felt more excited to keep shooting and felt really liberated not having to choose every morning what camera, what lenses or whatever to bring with me. The only thing I had to take care is just charging up my batteries, putting my camera around my neck, and I was ready to shoot. I just said that I was able to take that risk because we've visited some places I already knew, but now that I've done the experience, I feel way more confident and way more tempted to replicate that in a future trip to somewhere I've never been to. I may suffer a little bit of FOMO, fear of missing out, because the shooting scenarios and locations could turn out to be different from what I expected, but I really believe that the sense of relief and not having to think twice about your gear will overcome and even balance out the feeling of FOMO I may have. Another last thing I'd like to say is that when you use only one prime lens, your whole body of work documenting your family vacation, your road trip adventures or whatever it may be will be more cohesive and will have a greater sense of uniformity. And I think this is very important if you want to use those pictures for a greater project like a zine, book or even an exhibition. We often hear, and I may have told this to some people already, that prime lenses are a very good tool to improve your photography, be creative when you go out in the streets or just around your place to take photos. But when it comes to travel, you should prioritize an all-rounder zoom lens because you should make the best of this special and maybe unique experience. While it makes a lot of sense and I would advise in favor of that, I still think that there is so much value into documenting a whole trip with only one prime lens. On top of that, if you don't use a zoom lens wisely, it can really go against your creativity. It takes a lot of practice and experience, but ideally, a zoom lens should be used almost like a set of different prime lenses. Going into a location and beforehand thinking what could work well, placing your zoom lens to a specific focal length, let's say 35 or 28mm when you are in a very tight market, for example, committing to that for the time you are around that location, and only when you move to another location, switching for something that is more appropriate to that new environment. But as I said, it takes a lot of training and a certain amount of experience to be able to remember what 28, 35 or 50mm look like and what it can produce, so you can set your eye, set your vision in order to see in that focal length. whatever you choose for your next photography session or longer photography trip, going for a zoom lens or only a prime lens, that is up to you. But the key takeaway to this video is that I recommend you to make the decision process before shooting and even while shooting as clear, as easy and smooth as possible. The result will be you feeling more creative and inspired to take photos.